Welcome to Uncancelled Faith, a podcast that strives to break the culture of division which so often separates Christians from one another. I'm your host, Hannah Rose Russell, and I'm so excited to have you here today. This podcast is an Inspired Truth production and aims to create a safe space for people to bring new perspectives on topics that are frequently controversial or fall victim to cancel culture. Through thought-provoking conversations, we will challenge the norms, embrace God's unique calling on our lives, and find unity in our shared love for the Messiah. So grab yourself a drink and pull up a chair, because Uncancelled Faith starts now. Today, I am thrilled to introduce you to Ballet Magnificat, an extraordinary dance company that passionately shares the good news of Yeshua Jesus around the world through their incredible productions. Back in April, I had the honor of meeting them in Israel during their tour with Helping Hand Global Forum, where they performed Corrie powerful story, The Hiding Place, for more than 3,000 Holocaust survivors and World War II veterans. Joining me for this episode are Ballet Magnificat's founders, Keith and Kathy Thibodeaux, and two of their dancers, Cortne Robinson and Silas Fennema. Welcome to Uncancelled Faith. How are you guys today?
Hello. How are you?
Good. You all look so cozy on that couch.
We are.
So Keith and Kathy, you guys founded Ballet Magnificat in 1986. But what was your background before, and how did you come to faith in the Messiah?
You go ahead.
Good to see you, Hannah. Great to be with you today. I knew from the very beginning, when I was 6 years old, that I wanted to be a ballet dancer. That was my love, my life. I have to say, during my teenage years, dancing really became the God of my life. And instead of, even though I'd grown up going to church and had heard about Jesus, the Messiah, I didn't know him. I knew about him, but I didn't know him. And so dancing really became the God of my life. And then when I was 19, I met my husband, Keith. That's almost 47 years ago. Yeah, long time. And he started telling me about Jesus, and there was more to him than I knew, and for sure. So the Lord just, not long after that, just opened my eyes, showed me my need for him, and by grace, I accepted him as my Lord and my Savior. Totally changed my life around. He gave me totally different desires. And to dance for him, this was back in the early 80s. Didn't know how in the world to dance for Jesus. Nobody was doing that. I never heard of anybody doing that, but we saw in the Bible where it says to praise his name with the dancing. So we believe that God has given that gift of dance, but for that purpose. And so began praying together. In the meantime, we were married. So anyway, but began praying together about a company like Ballet Magnificat. And he slowly began giving the vision for that. And we started in 1986, and it's a miracle that we're still here, and God is allowing us to share his love across the world through the gift of dance. So we're very thankful and feel very blessed, and all glory to him.
Yeah, and Keith, you were the one who had the dream about Ballet Magnificat, right? Can you tell us about the dream and then the meaning behind this unique name?
Well, my background is that I was a musician, actor, and ended up playing with a band in Mississippi called David and the Giants. And this band was a secular band, and I came to the Lord when I was 24 years old. And then I went back to the band and said, "Hey, we can change the lyrics of the songs and play more, godly music to the same style that we've been doing all these years." And back in those days, in 1974, I mean, there wasn't anything like that really, as far as Christian music goes, in churches for sure. And so, little by little, they all came to faith, and then I married Kathy, and then we began David and the Giants as a Christian band. So I was on tour with David and the Giants as a Christian band. We were up in Illinois somewhere, and I was fascinated by Kathy leaving her secular ballet company and starting a Christian ballet company that was dedicated to glorifying God. And back in 1979, maybe, something like that. It took a while, but I had a dream about the Magnificat. And it was like all these heavenly voices singing over and over again, the Magnificat, the Magnificat, the Magnificat. It was like angels singing. And I didn't know what that was about. But when it came time, when Kathy finally stepped out in faith and started the company in 1986, they were asking, what's the name? What should we call ourselves? And so I suggested Ballet Magnificat, the ballet that magnifies the Lord. So that's it.
I love that name. Every time I say it, I still, because I remember you telling me about it, and it's so beautiful and it's so perfect, especially for what you guys do and how you've dedicated your lives to produce these incredible shows. Have you seen a difference in your life since making the decision to go from traditional dancing to a more godly and God-centered dance?
Well, people never thought that it would prosper. I mean, something like a Christian ballet company. Kathy was in the secular ballet company, the Ballet Mississippi, and they told her, they said, you'll never get funding, you'll never do this. You know, you're throwing away your life, you're throwing away your career. And so it was really a big step of faith. We took out our stereo in our home, and we took out the van, Astro van, and we traipsed around the country doing some of the first Ballet Magnificat performances, and started out with about 3 people, Kathy and 2 other dancers, one from California, one from New York City area. And it was just the beginnings of something that is now unbelievable, that God could do such a miracle, that we could have so many people in our company. We have a training program. We have a School of the Arts. We have a company now and a trainee division and school down in Brazil, below the equator, Ballet Magnificat Brazil. So it's like these people come up to Kathy. The International Ballet Competition is presently in town, and she helped carry the torch because she was a silver medalist in the International Ballet Competition back in 1982. And so they had her carry the torch. But these people, these secular luminaries from around the world, from Australia, different places, said, hey, they are just congratulating Kathy on the success of this Ballet Magnificat. That's like, they said, we see you guys travel all over. You're doing so well. It's like, but here we are. By the grace of God, we have these wonderful dancers that have left their homes, their states, and joined in the vision of presenting the gospel through Ballet Magnificat and what we do on stage.
It's wonderful. It just goes to show that when God really puts a calling on our lives, no matter the odds, we need to go for it, and he will make a way to allow it to happen. Because look at you guys, and you are really fabulous. I still think that the performances, I went to see you 3 times while you were here, and each performance was just memorable in itself. But what is the process of creating your shows? Is there a specific message you want to portray through your different productions?
You want to answer that, Corrie?
Well, I don't create any of the shows. So Kathy needs to.
Yeah, go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, we've been blessed to have Yuri Viborsky with us for a long time. He just kind of retired from the ballet, but he's from the Czech Republic, and he has done a lot of our story ballets over the years. And he did the Hiding Place, Corrie ten Boom's story, and amazing, wonderfully gifted choreographer. Actually, we have another gifted choreography on the end who you can he's working on something new right now as we speak. But so we've been blessed to have Yuri, and God really used him here to bring some wonderful, wonderful stories. And we just pray each ballet would honor Jesus. So that's the stories that we pick from the prodigal son to the story of Moses, to the story of Ruth, to the Corrie ten Boom, just different stories that are filled with hope and love and hopefully encouragement to believers and non-believers. So it was such a privilege to bring Hiding Place to Israel. I mean, it was, and Keith and I had the just honor of sitting in the audience watching the company dance it, and to just be surrounded by the wonderful audiences that we had, and see their responses, and see how God just opened their eyes to hopefully something new that they've never heard or experienced before, and praying that it was the Holy Spirit that touched their lives in a great way. I know we were blessed just watching.
I mean, you asked about inspiration for ballets. I mean, what better inspiration than to have the best news that anybody could know, and that's the gospel, and portrayed through different Christian stories, through biblical stories that we adapt, and just sharing. It comes from dancers that share their faith through their dance. It's not something acted, so much as something that's brought out through their innermost being, because it's who they are. They're believers, and so that's kind of the nutshell about it. Nutshell. That's not a good word. That's kind of the crux of the matter.
So how have audiences responded to these performances and your open expression of faith?
Why don't you tell us about your...
Well, all sorts of different experiences and receptivity of different audiences. I was a little bit nervous going to Israel and portraying this story, not sure if it would be offensive or just bring up a lot of memories and cause wounds rather than heal wounds. But with a lot of prayer, just trusting the Lord that at the end of the day, what we're presenting is the hope of the gospel. And the gospel is what heals and brings freedom and deliverance. And so trusting the message of Jesus. And so, especially in Israel, people received it so well. It was the complete opposite of what I thought might happen. Instead of it bringing up memories that were hurtful, I think it brought up memories, and then it seemed like it almost brought healing to recall, and then to also look forward to what God has done, the fact that God has not forsaken them, will not forsake them. And I think the same even in the States. A lot of people aren't really aware of Corrie ten Boom's story, or if they are, they're very slightly familiar. And so to see a woman who can withstand such terrible circumstances and come out on the other side, not be bitter, that makes people ask questions. Well, how and why? And it's such a wonderful platform to say, well, it's because of Jesus Christ. He changed her life. He's changed our lives, and he can change yours as well. And I think that is so encouraging to people to know that there is always hope. If you're alive, there is hope for you, and his name is Jesus. So honestly, I don't know if I've met anyone who has rejected specifically the story of Hiding Place, because it's a real story. It's someone's real life. They can't deny that. And they usually are encouraged because, we ask the Holy Spirit to use these ballets, and I really believe that he does. So he goes before us and behind us and prepares the hearts, and people receive it so well, but it's all because of the work of the Lord.
Amen. Yeah, Corrie ten Boom's story. She has changed the Christian world with her message of trusting in God and forgiving even our worst enemies. And I, too, was very skeptical when I heard you were bringing it to Israel to perform for survivors, because you're displaying experiences that they have faced in their lives. And so For you, Silas, you play a much darker role as a Nazi in the play. How did you prepare to embody the character, and what was the reaction you got from it?
I feel like I didn't quite grasp the depth of the situation, to be honest. Like when we were doing it in the States, because we aren't as, or like we weren't involved necessarily in that history, there's a different stigma, I guess, or like not any, like people don't have a preconceived idea necessarily that is super personal. And so I think I remember in the first show that we did in Israel, all of a sudden it like sunk in that these people, like I'm representing someone that, or a symbol that caused so much pain and so much hurt in these people's lives. And I think just kind of understanding that the more evil that I could be, the better the light could shine, and trying to kind of make that contrast a lot more obvious so that the Lord's power, the Lord's love, and the Lord's forgiveness could really come through. And I didn't really have many people come up to me and say like, oh, I love the way that you did that, or blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, I wonder why. But I'm grateful to know that there wasn't a rejection of the story of Hiding Place, that people weren't put off by Nazis being represented in that story, but people were able to really see the hope that there is in Jesus and the forgiveness that we can have if we put our trust in him.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. And you talk about the darker you get, the more light can shine through. So how did you feel that God protected you when you were embodying the character and you stepped out onto the stage? I know Sherry Pelser, who played the high-ranking officer, she was like, she just felt God's peace wash over her before walking on stage. So what was it like for you?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't really know how to answer that. I guess, like, looking back, I am very, very grateful for the protection of the Lord. Just like seeing how I could have gotten kind of lost in that character. I could have let myself be taken down by just the emotions that come with that, the attitude that comes with that character. But at the end of the show, there's that worship song, Come Unto Me, and it is like ending the show on a sweet note, like having all this savory stuff happen, and then at the end, getting to finish with just a worship song. And I get to kind of take off the character of the Nazi and put on the blood of Christ, and have a separation between an evil character that I am not a part of, and put on the identity that I truly am a part of. So I'm really grateful to be able to look back and see the protection of the Lord.
It's so true. The end scene where you're all taking off the coats and you're bowing down to God. It sends chills when you see it in person, because it's what Christ does for us by washing us clean and all of our sins, and even those people can repent and have forgiveness. And I love that, even though there's controversy sometimes over the roles that Christians take on in the entertainment industry, whether it's too dark or whatever, but how God can use that. And he really used you, because without you guys in the story, it wouldn't be, like you said, as powerful as it could have been. So thank you for embodying the character, and thank you for taking that risk.
Yeah, you should see the new role he's doing now.
Can you give us a little hint at what it is?
Well, we're working on a kind of a new ballet for the company. It was inspired by I don't know if you've heard of this story, the Screw Tape Letters.
I'm reading it right now.
Oh, you are?
Wow.
So we have a ballet kind of inspired by that. And so Silas actually is playing one of the little demons. So he's really playing a dark role now. So.
A little tempter.
Yeah.
Okay, now I've got to see that. You're going to have to tell me the tour dates, and I'm going to fly wherever you are. Yeah, I've been reading the Screw Tape Letters with my accountability group. It's a small book, And Jeff, who was your doctor for the dancers for a time, he was at first skeptical. He goes, we're going to finish this so quickly. What's the point of doing it? It's been 6 months and we're not even halfway through.
Wow.
We are going so slowly, but it's so good. Every 2 weeks we meet, and we went from doing 5 every 2 weeks to 3 to 2 and now 1. And then we're almost getting to half. We're like, no, 1 is the limit of how low we're going to
Yeah. But the name of that ballet that we're doing right now, that Kathy's talking about, is called Stratagem. And it's inspired by the Screw Tape Letters. Our daughter Tara Thibodeaux choreographed that particular one, and it's more contemporary, if you want to call it, quirky, very reflective of what the Screw Tape Letter, that whole thing is. And so it really is one of those kind of things that you really got to pray, because it can bring on it, because you're exposing darkness in a spiritual sense. The hiding place was more of it in a physical sense. This is more in a spiritual sense and behind the scenes. So it definitely opens you up for stuff. And so that's why, it's so important that we stay, protected in prayer and know who we are in Christ, and know our authority in Christ.
Amen. Exactly. And now, Cortne and Silas, I want to hear from you guys and how you started dancing and ended up in Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi, from California and Michigan. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Sure. So growing up in California, I started dance when I was, I think, 9 years old. I had my first class, and it was very worship-based. She was a Christian dance teacher, really emphasized how dance primarily should be used to worship the Lord. And from that point on, I just knew, I love this. I love the idea of this. I love moving my body and connecting with the Lord in this way, expressing my worship. But she didn't really provide any dance training. And so my mom kind of picked up on that, and she decided to take me to a secular ballet school when I was 12. And I realized that I was pretty far behind where I should be for my age. But I knew I really wanted to do this. And so I just worked really hard and continued to give my training to the Lord. And he really protected me from a lot of the dance world. It has, any avenue of work can be, there's evil to it, and so the Lord really protected me. But I knew all about Ballet Mag ever since I had that first ballet class with that Christian teacher. She exposed me to them. And I just thought it would be the coolest thing to be able to do that one day. And so when I was 17, I came to Ballet Magnificat Summer Dance Intensive for the first time. Fell in love with the heart and the vision and the people. And I knew that was something I wanted to do. Fast forward a couple of years, I auditioned for the trainee program and got accepted. Moved here when I was 19. 2 years later, I got promoted to the company, and I've been touring with them for the past 12 years. And it's been such a privilege, such an honor. The Lord has changed my life through this ministry. And, so many people when I was younger said, why are you moving to the South? Jackson, Mississippi, to pursue ballet? Like, wouldn't you want to stay in LA or move to New York or somewhere more like, I don't know, prestigious? And I said, no, that's not where I want to go and serve the Lord with the gifting he has given me. And Jackson, Mississippi is where it's So we moved here, and the Southern charm got me, and the people of the ministry just make it all the sweeter. And so, time flies when you're having fun, is what they say. And that's been very true. It's been a blessing to be here.
For me, my older sister was a ballet dancer, and the studio that she danced at was started by a former company member of Ballet Mag. And so when I was 11, I started dancing there. And about 3 years in, I was kind of about to give up dancing. Actually, I started to not really like it. But my mom was kind of like pushing me to go to the summer program at Ballet Magnificat down in Jackson, Mississippi. And I ended up going, and it was there that I saw people living their entire lives for Jesus. And the city that I'm from is very Christian culture. Everybody goes to church on Sunday. Everybody thinks that's what makes you a Christian. Everybody thinks my parents are Christians, therefore I'm a Christian. And so I didn't really have any examples in my life of people who lived their entire life for Christ. And so when I came down to Ballet Magnificat Summer Dance Intensive, I saw all the company members living their lives for Christ in the classroom, out of the classroom, in the dorms, out of the dorms. And I just noticed that it was different. And the Lord slowly brought a love for dancing back for me, and was very patient, because it took, the Lord kind of uncovered that I wasn't actually saved. And so 3 summers in, I finally gave my life to the Lord, praise the Lord, and decided that I wanted to at least try to become a trainee with Ballet Magnificat. And so in 2017, I came to be a trainee, and I haven't really looked back since. Yeah.
And now you're choreographing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a big risk when we choose the narrower path, though it's often more rewarding. There still comes its share of trials with it. So have any of you battled doubt or fear choosing to honor God through your dancing rather than going a more traditional route for dance?
I think for me, it was never really, I think because I started with a Christian studio, for me, it was never really an option to go more traditional route. With ballet, there are certain standards, like to look a certain way, have a certain type of physique, like hyperextended legs would be wonderful, and archy feet, and just all of these things that God didn't necessarily gift me with. But I loved the art form anyway. So I kind of knew that a traditional company wouldn't be the route I would go. And if Ballet Magnificat didn't work out, then I probably wouldn't pursue dance in a secular environment, just because of even if I were to make it in another company, just the heartache of never being enough, never having the right look, or never being able to obtain what I really wanted, I think would just be too hard, and it would be really a struggle to keep the Lord first. And I kind of already knew that. So it was kind of Ballet Magnificat or I won't dance. Kind of is, for me anyway. I didn't really want to pursue a secular route in dance.
Yeah, for me, I think I'm just grateful to the Lord for protecting me from that. Like, I never really got the opportunity to go the traditional route. And I think that had I done that, I probably wouldn't know the Lord like I do now, if at all. Because I think at that time in my life, it was like a goal of mine to be something, to achieve stuff and have high status. So had I gone that route, I would have probably gotten wrapped up in things of this world and just the culture that comes with secular ballet. So I'm very grateful to not have had the opportunity to go that route.
God really protects us, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yes.
And he uses the underdogs. Like you said, Cortne, if you don't have a specific look, a lot of companies won't take you on, but that is no limitation for our God. He's always using the underdogs, always using the ones you wouldn't expect. And look at you. You are the Corrie ten Boom of the hiding place.
Yeah, glory to the Lord.
Is there any specific part of Corrie's testimony that has impacted your life and helped you portray her?
Well, it's hard to pinpoint one specific part of her life. I would say 2 things stick out for me. The first being forgiveness, obviously, how she extended forgiveness to the one that hurt her most. My parents were divorced, and my dad left when I was a young girl, and that caused a lot of wounds for me. And I actually didn't choose to forgive my dad until I was in high school when I saw Ballet Mag perform The Hiding Place. And it just kind of clicked for me that I have a relationship with the Lord. I am a Christian. I am saved, but I'm harboring unforgiveness. One, that's disobedience. Two, that is keeping my relationship with the Lord kind of strained, because he doesn't want us to walk in sin, but being unforgiving towards those who have hurt us is sin. So I experienced a tremendous amount of freedom in my personal walk with the Lord when I chose to forgive. Just kind of clicked for me, like, I have to obey the Lord, and what my dad has done to me is nothing compared to what I've done to the Lord in my sin. He forgave me, therefore I must forgive. And so when I did that, there's just something that clicked, a lot of freedom spiritually for me. So that part is very, very personal to me. And then I would say more generally, just her steadfastness. She was steadfast in the Lord before she ever experienced trials, so that when she did experience the unthinkable of the persecution and the concentration camps, she was able to withstand it, not because she was awesome, but because she relied heavily upon the Lord. She'd done so before. And so when she faced those things, she could look back on her life and say, God has been faithful, therefore God will be faithful. So just her steadfastness in Christ, I think, is an example that I look to and want to live by, because if I'm not anchoring myself in the Lord now, when seasons are well and everything's okay, what will I do when the storm does come? I was just actually reading in Jeremiah 17 today about how we're called to be trees that plant our roots by streams of living water, so that we can always bear fruit. We can always withstand when the drought comes. And so Corrie ten Boom did that in her life. And so I think generally that is how I want to implement her story in my own as well.
I love that. All of you are truly remarkable in your dedication to glorifying God through the art of dance. It's so encouraging to hear, especially in a world where it's not a normal, and if you do it, it's often thought of as either you're trying to be better than other people, or there's always a stigma that goes around it. So I really applaud you guys for your dedication to God, and I'm just praising him for what he's doing in your lives. I was wondering, though, how has your faith grown as you've obeyed God, Keith and Kathy, to establish Ballet Mag, and then also Cortne and Silas as you participate in this incredible company?
You answer.
Well, it's been an amazing journey, for sure. I mean, I was 23 when I came to know Jesus, and just to see the miracles he's done in our lives personally, and the life of Ballet Magnificat. And when we started Ballet Magnificat, nobody thought we would make it. You know, you can't make it. And so after 37 years, you know, all we can say is it's the Lord, it's God, you know, who has sustained us, who has provided for us, who has taken care of us. And, you know, it's been quite a journey of faith, but God has just blessed us more than we could have ever imagined. You know, when we thought, well, we'll just travel around Mississippi, you know, but he's had us go into almost 50 countries now with the good news. And, you know, we, like I said, all glory to God for what he's done. So.
Yeah, I mean, this company could have disappeared years ago. The year that it was established, it could have disappeared and been forgotten. They tried to start something, you know, and then it just didn't do anything. But it was really the vision, the purpose of Ballet Magnificat and Kathy's heart to share her faith through that. And it was like, that's what you need to continue to go on. You have to have you have to believe in what you're pursuing. You have to believe in the vision. You have to believe in the purpose. And our purpose is bigger than ourselves. It's God's vision, to praise his name in the dance, Psalm 149, to praise his name with the dance, Psalm 150. It's his vision that brought Ballet Magnificat to pass and brought people like Cortne and Silas into the company and to be leaders like they are, and just followers of the Lord and pursuing the Lord, but yet trusting in the Lord. That's the main thing. He said, blessed is the one who trusts in me, says the Lord. And, there is a blessing that comes with trusting the Lord. There's a blessing that comes with relying on him and not your own efforts. And so that's kind of what we are here. We just basically do what we know to do, the right thing, and God covers our backs.
I would say just the privilege to have the Lord so intimately intertwined with something that we love to do so much has really impacted my life. Just to always, just naturally, with what we do in the mornings, doing devos, with the shows that we do being a gospel-oriented story, just having the Lord at the forefront of my mind constantly has been a huge blessing and a huge asset for my growth in the Lord. And just, life is full of ups and downs, but the Lord remains the same. And just like seeing his faithfulness to hold me in his hands and carry me through the past 7 years of my life, it's a testament to the Lord's faithfulness and to his goodness for his people, and just how personal of a God he really is. It really has been an adventure. And it really is a privilege to be part of this.
Yeah, and I think for me, my faith has grown being here, because as what we do, we don't only just perform and take ballet class. There's so many other little things that are involved with being a dancer in Ballet Magnificat. And you just get stretched a lot. Like you do things that you never thought you'd do. You get stretched as an individual, and to do that, you have to rely on the Lord, because you're walking outside of your comfort zone. Like sharing after the show, for instance, I was very shy growing up. I don't like public speaking at all. I don't like talking in crowds. I'm just very naturally more quiet. And so this is a very small example that being stretched. So having to share the gospel after a show is just not something that I ever thought I would do. But when I was asked to do it, I first said no. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then at that time, Yuri was like, well, I want you to just pray and give me an answer in another 24 hours. And the Lord made it so clear that my answer no was not acceptable. And I said yes. And so I knew that, okay, Lord, you've been faithful before, kind of like what I was saying about Corrie's life. You've been faithful to me before, so you'll be faithful to me in this. And so he has been. And then also just, as a dancer, you walk through injuries, and I don't know, am I going to dance anymore? Am I not going to dance anymore? Just wrestling with those things. And, God is so faithful to fulfill his promises. And so trusting him for healing if he called me to dance, or that he would sustain me and give me grace while I wait. And all of those things I've experienced. So it's been a faith journey. But I think anywhere you go, wherever you work, if you know Christ and you have a living, abiding relationship with him, your faith will grow. Doesn't have to be here at Ballet Mag. It can be anywhere. Your faith will grow if you're in him.
Well, you never would have guessed that you are shy public speaking, or that you have. I was gonna ask, like, what was it like to proclaim your faith at the end of each show? So That is incredible. And like you said, look, for dancers, you're stretching your body all the time, but you're stretching your spirit as well, with Ballet Mag. And I just think that's so amazing. And I love what each of you have said. And I think each one of you just had a message there for listeners who might be struggling to glorify God in the workspace or share their faith with others. It's just to trust him when he says to do it, and to allow yourself to be molded. As he says, we are the clay and he is the potter. So just be molded into who he is wanting you to be, whether that is dancing in secular areas or doing any work in secular environments, or being at places like Ballet Mag or in other areas that are God-centered or Christian employment. So thank you all for sharing that and for being so open and honest about your faith, because that's amazing. So the final question is, how can dancers listening to this episode connect with Ballet Mag and participate in either your school or summer programs? Do you have specific ages that you take on?
We take ages like 11 to 25 for summer dance intensive, and they can go online and check out balletmagnificat.com or our Facebook page or Instagram page and get some links to that. And if you're interested in being in the training program, you could click on that link on our websites, and it'll refer to that and how you do that and how all that happens. And so we get our company members from our training program. So if you want to be in the company and you have faith that you will be in the company or want to be in the company, then that's the way that we have people do. They get discipled and trained here, and they find out what Ballet Magnificat's about, whether they want to stick around or not, and we go from there.
Amazing. Well, I will put all the links in the description below. Thank you all for being a part of this episode of Uncancelled Faith. It has been an absolute honor to learn more about glorifying God through the art of dance, and meeting you in April was a memorable experience. I really hope our paths cross again, either here in Israel or I'm coming to Jackson, especially for Screw Tape.
Absolutely.
But we want to go to Israel.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Well, y'all come back, and then I'm going to come to see Screw Tape for sure. That is a must. If you enjoyed listening to this interview, make sure to hit that subscribe button and follow us on social media to stay connected to all the latest episodes of Uncancelled Faith. Let's keep the conversation going and continue to break the culture of division that seeks to separate us. Until next time, God bless.